Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, proud founder of FarmersOnly.com, my brother Mike.
Hey, listen to me. Have you ever, woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go choring, or been intimate with the not so pretty end of a cow? All right. Then I can find a match for you. All right.
Yeah,
Come on
yeah.
now. Let's get those farmers together and get freaky in the barn. They make country music about that all the time. Country boys and girls getting down on the farm. Here we go.
What a brilliant idea that was, honestly.
I know. Someone hit a home run. I hit a home run.
You hit a home run. You hit a home run with FarmersOnly.com. Let's be honest. Everybody knows that's where you go if you're looking for some farmer action. And so
some sweet farmer action.
Mike knows. Mike had a feeling. He knew the market. Anyway, on this week's episode, we're going to look back on a week that saw the Royals clinch a playoff berth for the first time since 2015. Consider this a celebratory episode, because that's really what this is. We're celebrating. We're dancing. I wonder if it'll give me like a little, probably not. Okay, great. Mike's dancing for those of you who are listening right now instead of seeing it. So if you want to really watch it, go to the YouTube channel and watch Mike dance around a little bit. But we're also then going to discuss our keys to a sustained Royals playoff run. And so we would like to see this thing last longer than 2 games. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about what it will take for them to make sure that it does last longer than 2 games. And then, of course, we'll preview the wild card series against the Baltimore Orioles in a pretty extensive preview we're going to give later. Sadly, the games will be played during the day, so we had planned a game 1 watch-along, but that's no longer going to be the case. Sorry.
Well, I might turn it on so it's going to be right at the end of the school day, game 1 and game 2. Mm-hmm. Probably not game 2. We'll just miss the school day with game 2, but I might show it for like the last 20 minutes of school. I might show the first inning or so to my students, just because why not?
Because, hey, you got to learn about these things in history class.
How many opportunities are you going to have, right?
Anyway, we want to remind you, though, speaking of things that are important, remind you to subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack. We'll be putting out some stuff about the Royals midweek, so Wednesday or Thursday morning we'll come out with an episode. Hopefully they've won the first 2 games of that series and taken the series, but we'll see on that one. So make sure you're subscribed to the Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. Also, make sure you're leaving us comments, likes, subscribes, all those sorts of things. Helps push us up the algorithm and also starts a dialogue. We like to respond to everybody who leaves us a comment on YouTube videos or on our Substack or whatever. So make sure you're leaving us some comments, and we'll start a nice little dialogue.
Tons of back and forth on Threads recently. Love the engagement on Threads. It's fantastic.
Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on their $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of their over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. We'll start the review of last week, the final week of the regular season, with roster news. The Royals, they got someone back, and they may get someone else back. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Mike, the Royals saw Michael Lorenzen come off the IL and pitch a little bit for them. They optioned Steven Cruz back to AAA as a resulting move. What are your thoughts on getting Lorenzen back and seeing Cruz go back to AAA?
Lorenzen? I always screw up this guy's name.
Lorenzen.
Lorenzen. Is that it? Are we sure? It looks like there's supposed to be an N, but I don't see an N. Okay.
I may have misspelled it. I don't know.
Yeah. So I like the thing that super intrigues me is his ability to pitch more than 1 inning, to start a game, to, get outs when you need them. I mean, he just seems like a guy who's going to be an important piece in a bullpen in a postseason run, like, you can get 4 really good innings out of a starter and then give it to Lorenzen to go 3, and that's huge to me. And we heard today from Matt Cottrero that Brady Singer is also going to be in the bullpen. He's another guy that can do that. And so I've really liked what I've seen from Lorenzen. I really have. I think he could end up being a guy you talk about at the end, like we do with, whether it's Chris Young, we talk about from that run back in 14 and 15. Or, any of those guys that had important innings in that bullpen. The bullpen has been bad. If he has a chance to go into it, you strengthen that bullpen. And I think it's going to be huge. And I've just loved what I've seen from him so far. So Really hopeful that he does well. Little scared when he came out of that start early the other day, but it looks like it was probably just he was tired. And I don't know if you saw him, he looked tired. I mean, he was drenched in sweat. It looked like he ran a marathon. I mean, so I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he could be a very important piece to help strengthen and stabilize a bullpen that's been a liability all year long. I mean, this bullpen is going to look completely different in the playoffs than it did the first half of the season.
Oh, for sure. Than it did the first half of the season, for sure. But I will point out that the bullpen has actually been significantly better over the course of the last month. Yeah. And so, it's interesting to me to get, now you talk about having Ursig as your number one guy out of the pen, Bubic as your number two, probably Sam Long as your number three, and Zerpa has pitched really well lately. Lorenzen will be in there. Singer will be in there.
Marsh will be in there.
Lynch might be in there.
Lynch has been really good.
Sure. I'm not 100% sure Marsh will be in there because he went out and started today and he threw 85 pitches at least. I don't think they're going to be like, hey, we're going to bring you back in 3 days to have you relief pitch. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's actually not in there.
Oh, you mean not on that? You mean not on the roster for that first?
It would not surprise me if he's not on the roster for that first series. I don't know 100% how roster rules work, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's not, because I don't know that they go out and throw him in a starting role today if he was going to be on that in the bullpen for this first series. So we'll see. I'm not my crystal ball is broken, so I don't know. What interests me about Lorenzen, though, is when you think about the different situations in which he might enter the game, they're really intriguing to me. So you might bring a Lorenzen in if the Royals get down by a significant amount early. So let's say they're down 4 or 5 and it's the third or fourth inning and you're like, this pitcher doesn't have it today. We have to pull him. You put Lorenzen in for 3 or 4. You keep your team close enough into that game where they might be able to make a comeback, right? Whereas if you just hand it over to some mop-up guy who's just going to continue to get shelled, that game's over, right? That's a valuable thing to have in the playoffs. Another valuable thing, like what you said, let's say a guy goes 4 or 5 innings. You don't want him to see the lineup a third time through. Okay, we have Lorenzen who can go 3, right? Like these are all situations, and that could also let's say you have a pitcher who you go out and you're up big in one of these playoff games. You're up 6-7 runs, and your starter's gone 5 or 6, and you're like, do I want to waste like my top end bullpen talent to finish out a game I'm already going to win? Let's have Lorenzen just pitch 4 and close this game out. Save all these other bullpen guys for tomorrow when the game might be closer. It's just really valuable to have one of these guys who can do so many things as a reliever or even spot start if, he won't have to do that in the playoffs, but it's really valuable to have.
The thing that I think of is Michael Wacha, who's likely to start that, or who's going to start that third game. And if there's times when he can get through a lineup twice, but you're like, man, he doesn't have it today and he's getting hit really hard. It's going at guys, or he's getting, giving up doubles, but they're not scoring and things like that. And because he's crafty and can pitch around guys, it works out okay, but you never want to see him out there for that third time. That's if you're going to peg a start where Lorenzen might be a really good piggyback kind of guy. I'm thinking it's that Wacha start in game 3 if it's necessary.
Yeah, and we've actually honestly seen that from Lugo a time or two, not as many as Wacha, but a time or two this season. We've seen it from Lugo as well. And so we'll see if he ends up coming in one of those situations. Also this week, though it was not actually roster news, Vinny Pasquantino has been taking a lot of batting practice, including hitting against live pitching against guys like Will Smith, and I think he had some time against Steven Cruz as well. There are people talking that Vinny Pasquantino may be put back on the roster in time for this opening series. Mike, what are your thoughts on the potential to get Vinny Pasquantino back, and what would it mean to this team if he came back?
Put on this jersey extra special. This is a Vinny Pasquantino jersey I'm wearing right here. It would mean I think he's going to be there first off. I think he's going to be there on Tuesday. I don't think you have him face live batting practice if he's not. Why would you have him do that if he's not, right?
So I think he's going to be in there. Divisional series.
3 righties in this series, all guys that he can hit. You want him in this series, okay? I think Vinny's going to be in there, and that makes me very happy. And not just because he provides like some power potential or anything like that. He provides some situational run production ability. Some Tommy Pham got on third. We need a sac fly. Some Bobby Witt Jr. is on second with nobody out or whatever, and we need somebody to pull the ball. He's very good at that type of stuff. Plus the fact that in especially Baltimore, he can hit one out to right. And so, yeah, I'm not only very excited about it, I think it makes your lineup deeper, therefore harder to pitch to. I think it's going to be better for Salvador Perez. I think it would be just so huge if he's there on Tuesday, and I really, really want him to be there on Tuesday.
Yeah, I was a little torn just because I'm a little skeptical still that he will be there on Tuesday. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm about 50-50. If somebody said like, hey, what do you think the odds are that he's going to be back for the series, this opening wildcard series, I would say 50-50 at this point. But it would be a huge boost. Because
do you like him better than the alternative? What's the alternative?
Yes, I don't like the notion that he might play hurt and re-hurt himself. I don't like the notion that that's on the table as well if they rush him back. And so,
but re-hurt himself, it's a broken thumb. If he re-hurts himself, then he's just out for the rest of the year like he was going to be anyway, and it heals over the offseason. So
that's true.
I'm
not a medical doctor. I don't know what could go wrong.
A broken thumb. I'm not a medical doctor either, but I've taken some classes on this. A broken thumb's going to be a broken thumb, people. All right, you're not going to do any more damage to a broken thumb. If it's if that's what it really is, and it hasn't done any damage to a ligament or anything, then you're fine. Okay. Like if he goes out there and makes it worse, then he's just out for the rest of the season.
Right. If he's going to go out there and be fine, like if he couldn't hurt himself worse.
I think he'll be DHing, though. I don't think he'll be playing
so
first.
Do I.
Sal will be playing first. I have a gnat flying around me. If I think he'll be DHing, I think Sal will still be playing first, and I'm there for it. I'm all the way in for it.
I think that's going to be the case as well. I think Salvador Perez will play first and Vinny will DH, and I think that's how it should be. I also think you can't the situational hitting thing is great, but you can't undersell the degree to which this team could really use his ability to hit for power. Right? I'm talking doubles power. I'm talking home run power. We've talked about how the offense has struggled over the course of the last few weeks. A lot of that is a lack of power production. And if he can come out and provide some of that power, if he can come out and feel it for a series or two, that would go such a long way in helping this team be more productive offensively, which they're going to have to be facing a team like Baltimore and then facing teams like the Guardians and the Yankees and the Astros. Like they have to be more.
It's going to be the Yankees if they win. Yeah.
Right. If they win, it'll be the Yankees, but any of these teams they end up having to face, they will need that power production. On the field this week, the Royals went 4-2 to bring their overall record to 86-76. I believe, Mike, is that
correct?
That is correct. I'm doing this on the fly from memory. They were able to sweep the Nationals, which is really ultimately what got them in position to grasp a playoff spot. They did end up winning 2 of 3 from the Braves, winning 1 of the 3 from the Braves by winning a game today and moving into the 5th seed, which is what makes them face Baltimore. Mike, what are your thoughts on how this last week of Royals baseball went?
Well, first off, I was of the opinion that it would be better if they faced Houston and then Cleveland, because I think they match up really well with Cleveland. I think it's about a draw, about a scratch, Houston and Baltimore, different teams, but I think when you kind of match them up and say, okay, the Royals do better against this kind of thing, they do worse against this kind of thing, I feel like Houston and Baltimore have different strengths and weaknesses that match up differently against the Royals, or roughly the same when you even it all out. But I really wanted the Royals to see Cleveland in that second round if they win, not the Yankees. But I digress on that. It was the week that the Royals needed. They needed a sweep of the Nationals, and we really, as we said, wanted them to clinch in that first game of the Braves series. Now, we wanted that to be because of a win by the Royals, but a loss by the Twins is just as good to me because they were able to set up their starting pitching the way that they wanted to do it. So it'll be Cole Reagans in that first game, Seth Lugo in the second game, and Waka going in the third. Some guys were able to get, Bobby got a day off, Sal got a day off. Those were important. Some other guys got days off that were very important. And we saw some guys start to hit too, which is going to maybe be huge. Hunter Renfroe hit a home run today. And that's, if he can, and I think, did he have one earlier this week too? Might have had one earlier this week.
I don't know that he had a home run. I think he might have hit a home run, or it might have been. Yeah, I think he might have hit a home run against the Nationals.
I can't remember, but if he can come out and provide some power for you, oh man, that is big. That is so big for the length of your lineup, and that's really what we want. And we're going to get to strong performers here in a second, but I thought it was a solid week. They came up against a freight train and Max Fried in the Braves series, but other than that, I thought they played pretty well. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited for this. I would have preferred to go Houston than Cleveland, but you got to play good teams and win in the playoffs to win in the playoffs and get to the World Series either way.
Yeah, I prefer the opposite. I prefer a Baltimore matchup, and for reasons we'll get to later on in this in our preview section. But I thought it was a really solid week of baseball from the Royals. That National Series will kind of be the series that defines the season in some ways, because they put themselves up against a wall going into that series, and it was like, okay, you have to beat this team that you're better than, and you pretty much got to sweep them. And they went out and they handled their business. They were still struggling to score runs for a lot of that, but their rotation, which has carried them all year, was nails. Their bullpen was very good, and they ended up sweeping that series and essentially sealing their playoff victory, or sealing their spot in the playoffs. I was pleasantly surprised with how well they played the Braves series. Obviously, they lose that first game. Okay, that's fine. They get the news that night that they're in the playoffs. The next day is almost a write-off. I was thinking to myself, like, I would love to see what the record is for teams the day after clinching a playoff spot, because I got to imagine it's terrible, right? Like, everybody is hungover. Most of the people who are supposed to be starting are not starting, and it's so I didn't expect them to win that game, but they came out today and they won that game. They were still not really trying to win it, but they still did. And so, you saw a solid performance.
And the Braves needed to win that.
The Braves need all of these games. They need to win all of them. And so
they needed that game today, and they lost to us.
Meant something, right? And so, it was great to see. And some people have started to hit, and I think that's going to be hugely important as we move into the playoffs. It ended up setting up really, really well this week. And hopefully that ends up paying dividends in this first round at the very least. Mike, in a week that was a successful week for the Royals, who was your strong performer?
Michael Massey, and he's another one that if he continues to hit the way that he did this week is going to be a huge boon to this lineup as we go into the Orioles series, and they have a bunch of right-handed starting pitching lined up. He went 6 for 15, 2 doubles, a home run, big 3-run home run in the first inning today, 4 RBI, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Michael Massey giveth and Michael Massey taketh away at sometimes, but if you can get one of those guys hot right before the playoffs and go into the playoffs and say, okay, we've got a righty heavy lineup or starting rotation in Baltimore, and you are a lefty who can take one out to right field, a somewhat short porch in right field in Baltimore, then Michael Massey could become the MVP of this series if he's really hot and can drive him out to right field. So I'm excited for what Michael Massey does in this Baltimore series.
Yeah, it's great to see him hitting. That's one of the things we'll talk about when we get to the preview, is what it's going to take for this offense to start producing at a level that's capable of winning in the playoffs. And one of the things is they just need more guys to start producing, beyond Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez. They need guys who can actually produce runs, drive in runs, extra base hits, and things like that. And if Massey's in his groove, which sometimes he gets in, we know he gets on heaters sometimes. If he's getting into one, that would be very good news. My strong performer for the week is not a huge surprise. It's Cole Reagans. He went 6 innings pitch in his start this week.
He was so
3
good.
hits. He was so good. 3 hits, 0 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. Just looked in complete control that entire game, and has gotten to the point in this last month where it looks like he is doing a lot of good work outthinking hitters at times too. And that's hugely important for him. We know he's got this dynamic stuff. We know that he was able to utilize that in a lot of ways, but to watch him set up hitters, to watch him set up entire lineups as he's moving, using different pitches, multiple times through the rotation, it's just a different game when you're capable of throwing 5 pitches that are really good. And you know that, okay, the first time through the order against this guy, I'm going to use these 2 heavily. The next one, I'm going to use these 2 heavily. The next one, and everybody's off balance the entire game, right? And so that's what we're seeing from him. I'm so happy that he gets the chance to go out and be the number 1 starter for the Royals in an important playoff series against Baltimore. when I think about how it must have felt to be traded away from the Rangers last year and watch them go on to win the World Series. And then now he has to be like, and he's with the 106 loss Royals and all this stuff. He must have been feeling pretty not great, right? And then this year entirely turned it around. Now he's in the playoffs. He's got his own chance. He gets to be a starter like he'd always hoped he'd be. All right, that's it for the strong performers. Some people didn't really show out this week, though. Mike, let's talk about the weak performers.
Yeah, Maikel Garcia was lackluster, to say the least, and he has really been all year. 0 for 14 this week. 4 walks into 4 Ks, and the 4 walks is good. You like him getting on base like that, but and maybe it's a signal. Maybe it's a signal that he's going to start driving the ball for some hits, but he has obviously he plays a solid defense. He had a little bit of a miscue today in the game, but he's got a 69 weighted runs created plus for the year. I don't care how good a defense you're playing at third base. That doesn't play in Major League Baseball. 69 weighted runs created plus for the year. I mean, that's not anywhere where you need him to be. You need him to be 95 at least. Even if he's playing great defense, you need production from your third baseman, and you just haven't been getting it. And it looked like for a while there, maybe you could get a good rotation where Paul DeJong was coming in and giving something, but he hasn't given you anything recently. And so it does worry me. Now, if Massey is going and Renfroe are going and Vinny comes in and can give you something, then it's not as important for Maikel to hit. You can put him down at the lineup and he might give you some speed options or do something important for you situationally to help you win a game in the playoffs. But if he's going up there and giving you what he's been giving you offensively, we're going to be talking about him as one of the reasons we don't advance. If other guys aren't picking up the slack. So Maikel Garcia, it's a huge postseason for you, especially when you consider like he's superfluous on this team. Really, is what he is, and we've always said this. He's probably more valuable to another team than he is to the Royals because of his defensive ability at shortstop. He's never going to play shortstop for this team, and so this offseason may see him go bye-bye if they don't believe in his offensive potential moving forward.
That might be the case. I will say this about Garcia. Remember that he played winter ball this year too. And so he's essentially been playing since the start of last season. And so
I get that.
He needs a break.
Then stop playing winter ball.
I think they're going to tell him you
got to do something to change because he was at the same place last year, coming into this year as he is last year.
I think they're going to tell him, you're not playing winter ball this year. Instead, we want you in Arizona. We want you working with somebody. We want something to happen that is geared specifically towards working on your approach to the plate and your swing, right? Because he needs to do more to pull the ball and lift the ball, and that's the only solution to his hitting problem. And a big part of that is what pitches is he swinging at in what counts and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see on that one. But you're right. Right now, he is not... he's not covered himself in glory. My boy, Freddie Fermin, is also not covering himself in glory. He went 2 for 15 last week with 0 extra base hits, 0 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Fermin seems like a classic guy who was overexposed because he's been asked to catch so much more recently with Vinny Pasquantino being out and Salvador Perez playing first base. He's still doing a great job catching, and there's no problem with that. And I think he'll continue to catch quite a bit. But the offense just hasn't been there for quite a while, and it wasn't there last week either. I hope that he can turn that around. I think he at least hit one well today. And so hopefully he can find some offense and maybe be a playoff hero. I'd love it if Freddie Fermin were a playoff hero because I'm always rooting for him. But it hasn't been great lately, and it might continue to not be great if he has to play so much. Mike, with all the good news from last week, what is that theme that you're going with?
Oh, I'm going with a classic. Just a classic. Old George Jefferson and the Jet from the classic 70s, I believe 70s,
I think
TV
70s,
show,
yeah.
The Jeffersons. I'm going with a theme song because we're moving on up to the east side.
Moving on up
to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Moving on up.
Moving on up.
We finally got a piece of the pie. That's all I can think of when we made the playoffs. Like, yes! And now we're actually going to the East Coast, which makes more sense than when I was thinking about it for Houston. And so we're not going to East Texas. I don't want to say about that, but come on. Yeah, no, it feels so great to be back in the playoffs and to feel that feeling like we did again. And honestly, the 2015 run was so fantastic and so awesome, but it felt so much better in 14 because it had been so long, and like,
and if you recall, the 14 team was not set to make the playoffs until very late in the season. Like, they had to come back to make a playoff run. And so when they got in, everyone was kind of just like, well, it's all gravy from here, right? Like, there was no pressure because we were like, oh, it's great. It's gravy. It's no big deal. And then they end up doing the wild card. And then
after they win that wild card game, they steamrolled. I mean, they were on a run.
I think they swept their next two opponents. Like, they felt like a team,
including Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe you're right. I think it's Baltimore and it was Anaheim at the time, or Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim or something like that. I think it was those two, and then or maybe not. I can't remember who it was, but yes, they were like a team of destiny at that point. And the 15 one felt a little bit more like, the expectations are that we're going to get there,
Exactly. So it feels like we're playing with house money, and we're the Jeffersons, and we moving on up, baby. Here we go. Love it.
I'm also going with a very positive one. This one from one of my favorite films of all time, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. At the very end,
great one. I hadn't read this before. This is fantastic.
Gene Wilder looks down at the kid who plays Charlie Bucket. I can't remember the actor's name. But
he ended up being a dairy farmer. Did you know that?
He did.
He got out of acting, ended up being a dairy farmer.
He did. He looks down at Charlie after Charlie's learned that he's going to take over the chocolate factory, and he says, "You know what happened to the boy who suddenly got everything he ever wanted?" And Charlie says, "No, what?" And Gene Wilder's character says, "He lived happily ever after." And so that's what I'm looking for, is our happily ever after. I feel like the boy who suddenly got everything he ever wanted. The Royals are in the 2024 playoffs. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy. You already know that All in Physical Therapy helped our mother break the world record for SUVs thrown across a river. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
Who's got pain when you're playoff bound, baby?
Ain't no pain over here.
Feeling no pain.
All in Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert, with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. But most importantly, they're in-network for nearly all insurance providers.
Making the playoffs is so in-network.
It's very in-network.
Just completely in-network.
If you're a high school athlete recovering from injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. For this week's Spotlight segment, there's only one thing we can talk about: playoff baseball. The Royals have completed one of the greatest turnarounds in baseball history, going from 106 losses to, 76 losses? Or put another way, 56 wins to 86 wins and a playoff berth. Now, they're back on equal footing with everyone else. Everything starts over in the playoffs. Win and advance, lose and go home. So with that in mind, Mike and I are going to spend the Spotlight segment providing our keys for a playoff run. What will it take for the Royals to win and advance? Mike, since you're 1/16th Episcopalian on your father's side, I'm going to let you go first, okay?
Yes.
What's your first key to a Royals playoff run?
Yes, deeply 1/16th Episcopalian. First off, I absolutely loved when you put this in as the Spotlight segment, and I was like, we can get like deep and philosophical here. So my first one's multifaceted. My first key to a Royals playoff run is multi-inning relievers. And I'm talking Singer, Lorenzen, Marsh, and Lynch. If Marsh ends up making it, you don't think he's necessarily going to be the roster, but they're going to have multiple guys who can go multiple innings. And the way that you can utilize those guys, if you're creative in the postseason, is so crucial. And Lynch has been very good. Lynch has been better. Now, I haven't been able to dig into the pitch data yet to see if it's real. And how it will translate and all that sort of stuff. But I've loved the results and the outcomes that we've seen from Daniel Lynch. Singer, I think in the right spots against righties, or if you need a ground ball or to go in and get a couple strikeouts, Singer can be a real asset in the bullpen. And we've already talked about Lorenzen and what he could be. Even Marsh. I think even Marsh could be somebody who you feel like you can do okay with in a situation if you need him. And so, yeah, I'm excited about the transformational way this bullpen can be set up now, because it can almost go from something that was a liability in the first half to something that has been much better in the last month or two, month and a half probably, to something that might be something you can even lean on a little bit if you need to in the postseason. Maybe they don't need to because their starting pitching has been so good, but you have the opportunity, if they aren't good in a matchup, to go into them and go into that bullpen and feel like you're getting something good.
Right. And with that expanded bullpen, in the sense of having Singer out there and, having just more guys, you also have more options for matchups. You have more things that you can do. And so it's like, oh, if Singer's profile fits really well against the next three hitters, come on, Brady Singer, come on down. If it's just, you can play so many more matchups and situations when you have more guys to play with and more guys who are different from each other. So Lorenzen is obviously very different than Singer, who's obviously very different than Lynch, right? And so there are a lot of different options with those multi-inning guys. And if you have 3 or 4 of them, you have a lot of opportunity to save some of your bullpen guys for the really, really crucial moments. So in my mind, Bubic and Erceg are basically only going to get high leverage innings here. We're not going to be putting those guys in any moment where they don't absolutely need to be, my big key for my first key anyway, for the Royals is corner outfielders, specifically their offensive production. You mentioned Hunter Renfroe. I'll also mention MJ Melendez because they're facing 3 righties in this first series. This is your time to shine, MJ. Like, you are in there to face righties. You have power potential and you're going to be hitting in a park in what's it called? I'm blanking on the Camden Yards. That you can throw one out of Camden Yards, MJ. You should be able to hit a couple of deep fly balls out of this ballpark. The Royals desperately need offensive production, and they're going to need it from their corner outfielders. Those guys are in there to create power production, and if they're a blank in right and left field, they're in trouble, because as good as or as improved as Melendez is defensively, he's not out there to be a great defensive left fielder. As good as Renfroe's arm is, he's not out there to be a good defensive right fielder. They're there to hit. And if they don't hit, they're not doing much for the team. Mike, what is your second key to this Baltimore series? Or actually to a playoff run?
Yeah, I tossed this one back and forth, but I think it's got to be Bobby Witt Jr. I kind of tossed it back between him and Salvador Perez. But Bobby Witt Jr. is the engine of this lineup because he can do it in a lot of different ways. Can Bobby find that power again? A consistent power bat? Can he drive in runs? Can he be on base consistently? Can he not get thrown out on the bases consistently? And we feel like the defense is usually going to be pretty solid. There's been a spot or two here where it hasn't been great, but we need Bobby Witt Jr. to be a superstar. Go be the superstar that you are. He won the batting title this year. Get out there and be the offensive engine that drives this lineup. And not only will you cement yourself as a superstar in this league, because I think most people think you are, but it'll go to another stratosphere if you carry this team through a playoff run. You carry this lineup through a playoff run. And the Royals of 14 and 15, they didn't have that. They scored their runs on a lot of different guys hitting and putting the ball in play. They did not have a superstar. It was a different guy in every series that was the best, but nobody was a superstar. Bobby Witt Jr., go be that guy. I know you're young and I know it's a lot to ask, but get out there and go be the superstar that we know you can be.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is swing decisions, right? That's what it's going to boil down to. It. Like, if the pressure of the moment doesn't get to him and he can have good swing decisions, he can stay calm in the batter's box and swing at the pitches that he can do damage on, he'll be great. If he's over anxious, if he's over aggressive and he's swinging at pitches way outside the strike zone, he won't be great. And so he has the capacity to do whatever he wants in baseball because that's how good he is. But it comes down to, will he make good swing decisions? My second key, Mike, relates a little bit to your first, and it's bullpen related. I'm talking about the guys who aren't Ursig and Bubic. I'm talking about John Schreiber, Sam Long and company, Angel Zerpa, those guys.
Is Hernandez going to make it, you think? You think he'll be
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure
who they're maybe boil down between him and Marsh and like
I don't know. Well, remember, we can play this game if you want to. We got time, sort of. It's Ursig, it's Bubic, it's Long. You know those three are in there, right?
You know Lawrenson's in there.
Lawrenson, probably. You can probably assume that Schreiber will be in there. They've already said that Singer will be in there, right? And so that leaves
3
other spots because, three other spots because Singer is one of them. They'll have 9 guys in the bullpen, right? So they have 6 that we know are going to be in there. I'm going to say that likely in my mind, it will be Zerpa. Who else? Probably Hernandez, I would imagine. Am I forgetting someone? I feel like I'm probably forgetting someone.
I got it right here, I think. Yeah, active roster right here. Did you say Lynch?
Lynch. Those are the 3 I would imagine make it. And so that's who I would imagine is in the bullpen. I would imagine Marsh is on the outside looking in for now because he started today. But in my thinking a lot with choosing those guys is what's really important here is the bridge to Bubic and Ursig. So if, Waka or Lugo or Reagans is coming out in the 5th or 6th, who is the person who is going to create the bridge to the relievers we feel really good about? Who is it going to be? Schreiber, Sam Long, Angel Zerpa, Lynch? Like these guys have to pitch well. It can't be that we have this weakness in the 6th, 7th, in between our starter and our, top-notch relievers. And so I put those guys down as a key because we've seen them fold at times. Schreiber, sometimes Young, or sometimes Long. I mean, the question is, will they rise to the occasion and be what they need to be in that moment?
Well, and here's the thing for fans to remember, too. It is not unheard of for starters to come out in the 4th or 5th inning in the playoffs because you can't get down by too much. You just can't in the playoffs. Every game is so crucial and important. If Waka gives up 3 runs and the bases and there's 2 guys on with nobody outs in the 5th, he's coming out of that game. I mean, that's
probably John Schreiber or Brady Singer is coming
exactly.
in.
Somebody's coming in to fill that spot. And so I agree. I think those guys are also going to be crucial. Now, if we see the Lugo, Reagans, and Waka that we've seen this year, they could go 6 or 7. They could do that to a lineup. These lineups are deeper, and so that's harder to see happening. But it's possible because they all have the potential to do that. Kind of just depends on how they're feeling on that night, how they're locating, and things like that.
Yeah. Mike, what's your third key?
My third key is no free passes. We cannot. So even the guys that have been fantastic in the starting rotation this year, like a Lugo and like a Waka, that have been fantastic, can still give up the long ball. And we're in a park, especially to start the playoffs. Actually, even if we win there, we're in a couple parks that are not very good at keeping balls in the park. And so we cannot be giving up those free base runners, whether it's walks or hit by pitches, whatever it is. We can't give up those free base runners that are going to tack on runs, mostly because our offense may not be able to make up those deficits. We need to be extremely efficient in our run prevention and then allow our lineup to do what it can do. I think if we make a run here, we're going to be winning a lot of close games. And so giving up those free passes that turns into runs in the playoffs is not an option. And so that's going to be one of our, I think, biggest keys to first winning this Orioles series and then moving on and having a run is no free passes from our starters or our bullpen guys.
Yeah, and here's why. Because the hitters they're going to be facing are going to be like really, really good. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto sitting in the middle of a lineup. You walk the guys ahead of them, you're screwed.
It's the Orioles lineup that worries me. It's so deep with power.
Right.
So
Santander.
Santander bats like 7th. And he's good. He's really good.
Who else is on this? I'm just
Rutschman,
blanking on who's
Holiday,
Cowher. Worried about Holiday hasn't really done much yet, and so
but he can is the thing.
He can, right?
Rutschman,
Cowher, who's
the kid, Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah.
Like they're everywhere. The kid, even the guy that's been there forever, the center fielder, Mullins, he can put one out. Like they can all hit one out. It's the thing, and that's what scares me a little bit about that Orioles matchup is because the lineup is so deep with power, and so
Honestly, I don't have a problem with giving up 4 solo home runs. I have a problem with giving up 3-run home runs. That's the problem, right?
Don't let people on.
Yeah. And so, one of the things I'm thinking about is my third key to this is if you've watched any playoff baseball in your life, you know that mistakes cost double in the playoffs, right? So you have to play mistake-free in the field and on the bases if you want to have any sort of chance of winning in playoff baseball. And if you remember back to the Royals series of 14 and 15, that is how they won and made runs in those playoffs. They didn't make mistakes and their opponents did. They just waited for their opponents to make mistakes. They kept putting balls in play. They kept running the bases in ways that put pressure on the defense, and the defense would make a mistake and they would take advantage of it, right? And that would keep, it's that sort of thing. You give them an extra out and you're screwed because the next guy's going to hit one out. You give them a free base, they're going to take advantage. You get it thrown out on the bases, you're cutting your own legs out. Like, it's just one of those things where mistakes pay double in the playoffs. And so do not make mistakes. It's got to be that tight, mistake-free baseball. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxher of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxher of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
I can't remember the last time I turned my back to you, but I do recall you stabbed me in it.
Well, you got a nice back for stabbing. Eric does long-term rentals for the snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will find you the perfect spot fast. You want to spend your days shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows back-related wound care. Find Eric online at ericoxher.com, or if you can figure out how to spell his name, it's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he knows how to pop them bottles. Pew, 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 pew. Playoff run.
The Royals will face the Baltimore Orioles in the wildcard round, as we've mentioned previously. We're going to do a fairly extensive preview of the O's for you. Mike, start by giving us the general skinny on the Orioles and the pitching matchups.
Well, let's talk about the team overall first. We've talked about how they are a good, young, deep lineup. Third in weighted runs created plus in Major League Baseball at 115. Their starters have also been good. They're fifth in starter ERA. Some older guys and some not highly touted guys, but they put together a good season. It's the bullpen that has held them back a little. Yeah, do you have something?
I'm going to add something, so let me know when you're done.
Please. Oh, yeah. The bullpen has held them back a little bit. They're 23rd in reliever ERA, so there may be a chance late in games for the Royals to capitalize on some relievers that are not fantastic. And to me, that means getting to those starters early in the postseason. If you can get to the starters early, get into that bullpen, then they're going to have a chance maybe to pile on with some runs because the bullpen's not fantastic. But they're a good team for sure. You get second in the AL East and you're a good team. They only the only team that beat them out in the AL East is the New York Yankees, who are also a very good team. So what do you have to add about the Baltimore Orioles?
So while they have very impressive numbers over the course of the entire season, their second half has not been nearly as good. This is a tweet from our good friend Alex Duvall, who's also a friend of the show. He wrote that the Baltimore Orioles are 30-33 since the All-Star break. In that time, here are their MLB ranks, he says. For weighted runs created plus, it's 7th. Obviously, they have a good lineup. For ERA, overall team ERA, it's 18th is their ranking for ERA. For starting pitcher ERA, it's 12th. For bullpen ERA, it's 27th in Major League Baseball. So their bullpen is a real liability for them. The Royals, obviously, over the course of the season have done pretty well against bullpens and less well against starters. Their defensive runs saved over that time, 20th. So maybe some opportunity to take advantage of a not great defense with the Orioles. Mike, give us a preview of these pitching matchups.
All right, yeah. So if you want the overall record, it's 92-72. Reagan's will be in that first game, Cole Reagan's Day, versus Corbin Burns, a 29-year-old righty out of St. Mary's. 2.92 ERA and a 1.10 whip. He's been good for a little while now. The cutter, mid-90s cutter, curveball, slider, changeup, sinker. He's famous for the cutter. He throws it about 45% of the time. He gave up 5 earned runs in 11 1/3 innings pitched against the Royals this year, so we've seen him a couple times.
We have seen all of these guys at least once this year, and two of them twice.
Yeah, just thumbs up from this guy here. In that second game, it'll be Seth Lugo versus Zach Eflin, a 30-year-old righty out of Haggerty High School in Florida. 3.59 ERA and a 1.15 whip. He's got a cutter, a sinker, a curveball, a sweeper, and a four-seamer in the low 90s and a changeup. He's similar to Lugo. He mixes it up a lot. He doesn't throw anything more than 28% of the time. Hitters do best against his fastballs, but he's a severe reverse platoon split guy. Righties actually do better than him, which seems to set up well for us, seeing as Salvi, Bobby, Renfroe, Pham, a lot of our right-handed hitting ability is we tend to do better against righties anyway. Waka versus Dean Kramer, if that third game is necessary. Dean Kramer?
I think it's Kramer. I don't know.
It's Kramer because I remember we said Kramer and the broadcast said Kramer. I'm pretty sure.
We'll go with what they say, I guess.
28-year-old righty out of UNLV, 4.10 ERA and a 1.24 whip. He's got a fast four-seam fastball that goes 93-94, a cutter, a splitter, a sinker, and a curveball. He's not a big strikeout guy. He gives up some hard contact, but guys can sometimes have trouble finding the right launch angle. He gave up 6 earned runs over 11 innings pitched against the Royals and 2 starts against us. So I actually like those matchups quite a bit. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's not a terrible set of matchups for the Royals. I hope that actually ends up being the case, because I looked at an article to try and find out who these probables would be. These are not the announced probables for the Orioles, except for Burns. They have not announced who their probables are, but their beat writer for mlb.com said that it was highly probable that Eflin would start and that Kramer would start after him. And so we're going by the word of the Orioles beat writer on who the pitching matchups will probably look like. Mike, thinking about this matchup for the Royals, how do you feel about the Orioles compared to maybe some other matchup, or do the Royals match up well with the Orioles here?
Well, I think those starting pitching matchups are actually pretty good for the Royals lineup. They tend to hit righties better. They struggle against lefties. No lefties going in this series. They tend to struggle against like power fastballs, and none of these guys have really great power fastballs. The cutter for Corbin Burns is always very good, and we know that. And so, yeah, I do like the starting pitching matchup. And then as we've said, the bullpen's not very strong. So I like that. I think that's a pretty good matchup. The only thing that scares me, though, is the deep lineup.
One of the things that I think I like this matchup, I like it better than Houston. I feel like Houston has been on a much better trajectory in the second half than the Orioles have, and are much hotter. And while the Orioles lineup is probably deeper than the Astros have just 2 absolute monsters in the middle of their lineup. They do. In Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez. And so I'm actually a little bit more optimistic for the Royals' chances against the Orioles. I also think, man, the Royals have seen Kramer and Burns both twice this year. They did fine against both of them. Like I think they, what did we say? 5 runs in 11 innings against Burns, 6 runs in 11 innings against Kramer. Yeah. About the same. If they can grab 3 runs off the starter in any of these games, they're doing fine, right? And then maybe grab a couple more against a bullpen, and you feel pretty good about where they're at, right? And so I think I'm feeling okay about this matchup, honestly. Mike, do the Royals pose any particular challenge to the Royals?
Well, you and I have talked about how deep lineups tend to even hurt the starting rotation that has been very good for the Royals this year. That's the ones, if our starting rotation has struggled against any type of team, it's been a team with a very deep lineup, because it's just, those teams are very hard to pitch against. You know, there's no breaks. There's no pitching around guys. There's none of that. You just can't do any of it. And especially Lugo and Waka, they can give up the long ball and they can give up some hard contact at times. And so that's the thing that scares me the most. You know, when you're going through the gauntlet of of Rushman and Cower and Henderson and Santander and all those guys. It's just it's a tough one to get all the way through.
Is he still with them?
Yeah, I can't remember if he is or not, but it's just a lot to get through, and so that's the one concern that I have. And it's going to make all those other little things that we've mentioned, the free passes, the defensive play, it's going to make all that stuff just all that more important.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think about this lineup, and the power is really the thing that sticks out to me and scares me, especially because they'll be playing in Camden Yards.
Oh, and we forgot Ryan O'Hearn, by the way. We could be put down by a Ryan O'Hearn revenge game at some point.
Oh my God, it's hard to say, but it might be the case. Yeah, you're right. And so we've named all the guys who are really tearing the cover off the ball for them this year. You're talking about Ramon Urias. You're talking about Colton Cowser. You're talking about Ryan Mountcastle and Anthony Santander and all these guys. It's a very deep lineup, but it's the power of that lineup that does scare me. The fact that on any given night, you could run into a team that's just hot hitting the ball out of the yard and you're giving up home runs. And there's really not much you can do about that. And so Jordan Westberg, that's his name. Jordan
Is that
Westberg.
The second baseman?
That's that second baseman.
I hate him.
Who's also very good.
Him and the kid, remember the kid who used to play second for the Giants? Oh, what was his name?
Oh, yes.
Killed us.
Joe Panic.
Yes. He reminds me of Panic, and I hate that guy.
What's crazy is they brought up Jackson Holliday essentially to replace Jordan Westberg, and Jordan Westberg has a 130 OPS plus right now. And so, yeah, they got a lot of talent. He's so good, he can't crack the lineup some nights. Think about that. That's how good their lineup is with all these different guys in it. And so the power is really the thing that scares me. If it comes down to things like whose rotation is better, I'll take the Royals rotation over the Baltimore rotation. Whose bullpen is better? Honestly, I'll take the Royals bullpen right now over the Baltimore bullpen. But the power of that lineup is somewhat the great equalizer if they can just be pounding ball home runs out of the park. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just About Outside segment. We'll talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, it's been a wild week for everyone. So what's going on in your life this last week?
Well, I'm actually not talking about something that happened this last week. I'm looking to the future. Okay. Tomorrow, my wife, out of her very thoughtful and caring heart, decided to sign me up for a session where somebody stretches me. And as Mark knows, and maybe our listening audience does not, we are two of the least flexible human beings you are ever going to find somewhere. We were both athletes in high school, but that did not translate into any sort of flexibility. And so I can't come close to touching my toes and haven't for a very long time.
He can barely see his toes.
I can barely see my toes, to be honest with you. And so I'm going to go to this thing and they're going to stretch me. And I'm sure they're going to try and sell me like some subscription to come be stretched professionally. But I didn't even know that was like a thing. Like, I didn't know you could go be professionally stretched by someone. It's not a massage. It sounds
delightful. It's
nice. Not a chiropractor. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to do it. But I'm sure they're going to try and sell me something, which I will, stubbornly refuse because I'm so cheap. But it's out there, folks. You want to be professionally stretched on a regular basis? Someone will do that for you. So I'm excited to see how it feels. I'm excited to see just what it is and all that sort of stuff. And that's happening to me tomorrow. So I'll report back on our midweek episode that comes out Thursday morning. I'll report back on how the professional stretching went if you're curious about that.
You'll need a subscription to the Royals Weekly Substack for that one, but I know all of you. Mike, you just drove over subscriptions by like 30%.
I know. I'm sure everybody's going to be tuning in to hear about if I survived my professional stretching. I'm a little worried because I'm afraid it might hurt a little bit because
it's going to hurt a little
bit. Really not flexible. Like if I move any direction, right or left, it hurts quite a bit. So we're excited to see what happens. Maybe I'll die. I don't even know.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Anyway. Give me a call when you're in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I'm talking about something that came up in conversation today. I hosted a writing retreat for graduate writers today, and I was talking to somebody who's a grad student in clinical psychology, and she was talking about stuff related to the loneliness epidemic, which if you don't know, there's a lot of research out right now that says that young people are lonely at rates that were that are much higher than in previous generations and that sort of thing. Generally, I think the loneliness is up among all people. But this used to be a phenomenon that you would see primarily in elderly people as they sort of have friends and family pass away, and they didn't have as large and extensive social network, couldn't get out and do things, that sort of thing. But now it's an epidemic among young people. And as we were having this conversation about it, one of the things that occurred to me that I wonder, and this is just a wonder if this is the case, she brought up the notion of like spaces that don't exist for people to socialize as much anymore, and sort of the existence of spaces outside of schools or work where people can sort of get together and socialize. And that might be one of the causes of some of this loneliness. And I was like, yep, that makes sense. I've heard about that sort of thing as well. But I also started wondering if we're not doing a good enough job of teaching young people the social skills necessary to form meaningful relationships and maintain them, right? And as a result, we have a lot of young people who don't know that they're settling for a form of a relationship that is not overly meaningful to them, right? And whether these be digital online relationships or whatever, it seems like we're not allowing young people the opportunity to understand how to go out, make a meaningful connection for someone, where to even look. Like, where would you even look if you needed? I had a student come to me last week who was struggling with the transition to college because they're in their first year in college. And I was like, interesting, because it used to be that colleges had a lot of ways for people to get involved and sort of make friends and find their people. But now I wonder if we might still have those, but we're just not very good as young people at identifying how to go out and literally make connections with other people, form these relationships, and not feel so lonely all the time. I don't know, Mike, you see young people all the time. Are they good at this or what?
I do, and you're right. They're not, and I don't think it necessarily always falls on them. I think there's some stuff that parents can do for young people to help them foster those things. And I think, and it's easy to blame the pandemic and stuff like that, and it's easy to blame social media, but I think parents really got afraid for sometimes very legitimate reasons to let their kids go out and build those skills. You know, just some online discourse that I've seen is like, oh, I'd never let my child go do a sleepover, and I'd never let these things happen. And we don't do play dates and things like that. And it makes me wonder if through some parenting things that we've done, we're not, one of the unintended consequences of those is that our children aren't building some of those skills. And we think that we can fill those voids with other means that don't create perhaps some of those meaningful relationships. And I think I brought this up in our last week's episode. You know, my wife, the relationship that my wife has with her very close friend group. Well, those bonds were formed, you know, many, many years ago. And our friend group's bonds were formed many, many years ago before a lot of those things happened. And I know we want to blame social media. We want to blame some of those things, but I think parents have to do a better job. We live in a world with the electronic connection. You've got to figure out a way to break through that to build a more meaningful relationships for your child and help teach them those skills. At least schools can't do it, guys. We can't. We're not going to be able to teach them those skills.
Too much other stuff to cover.
We got a lot of stuff to cover, and just throwing them in a room with other kids isn't it. You have to teach them how to, and we're even doing that with my son. My wife took him to this place this weekend, and when he first walked into a room with these other group of kids, he turned around. When he went up to him and said his name. Like, "Hi, I'm Lincoln." And they didn't respond because they couldn't hear him. Well, he turned around and started like crying to my wife. He's 2 years old. It's not big. He cries about everything, but he said, you know, oh, they don't want to play with me. And she goes, I don't think you heard them. Go up and say something again. Like teaching them that resilience of saying, hey, this is how you introduce yourself to somebody else. And this is how you play with someone else. And this is how you deal with conflict with one of your friends so that the meaningful relationship can last. And this is how you maintain a relationship with those friends. I think there's no handbook for parents to teach them how to do that. So I'm not blaming you parents or anything like that, but we got to do a little bit better job as parents doing that.
Yeah. And this person I was speaking with actually brought up the notion that there are also a lot of spaces where it's a kind of a common cultural practice to shame people in certain ways for like, you know, taking a position that's not popular or doing or saying something that might transgress a boundary or something like that. And that while that has good intentions in some ways for like helping, you know, create inclusivity, it also can sometimes shame people into not wanting to even try. There's like this presumption of vulnerability that people are not willing to take because they could get rejected, because they could feel shame in some way. And we don't teach people to deal with feeling rejected and feeling shamed and things like that.
That's
like,
huge.
It's things you got to process. Like you got to learn how to process the fact that you are wrong, or the fact that you've been rejected, or the fact that you have a little shame going on, like, or guilt or whatever. You have to learn how to process whatever this. It is, embarrassment. Like those are all things you have to learn how to process in order to form these meaningful relationships, because they don't just fall into your lap. And so that's just a thought I had this week. And one of the things that I'll continue thinking about as I work with young people as they transition to different contexts of their lives, and they try and sort of hang on to these relationships and develop new ones and all that sort of thing. I think it's a real tough thing to do, but hopefully we learn how to do it together. And hey, you always have a place here at Royals Weekly. That
we love you.
Sure.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Let's go.
We're here to help you out.
We're going to the playoffs, baby.
We're going to the playoffs, baby.
We're all friends now.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us here at Royals Weekly, presented by Online. We're all friends. We're all going to be here Thursday morning on the Royals Weekly Substack. So check back in for that. And we'll be back next week, of course. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.